I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin by reviewing the draft minutes of our previous meetings. There were two of them. One was held on November 20th, 2023. I just want to call your attention to page 7, line 11. We just have a couple of spelling corrections. So page 7, line 11, and it's line 8. So chairperson Clementi with the T. And then going back to page 5, again, a spelling correction. Second line, the spelling of Genesee Avenue, Geneseef. Noting those corrections, I make a motion to approve the minutes. Would a member second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor? Aye. Approved with those two corrections. And we look at the special meeting that was held by the Brunswick Zoning Board of Appeals on December 4th, 2023. And I would make a motion to approve the draft minutes. Would a member second? Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved without amendment. We'll review the
We're
agenda.
going to note for those that, as Pat recused herself, it was 3 of them, Pat recused.
Okay, very good. And we'll review the agenda for tonight's meeting. We'll begin by the building permit for a new residence on Green Street. That's an area variance by Mr. Masambo, followed by a use variance at 2978 New York 2 for cold storage. So I'll ask the applicant, Mr. Masambo, for Green Street, if you'd like to come up and give us a brief overview of the project. What we'll do at this meeting is to review your application materials to see if they're complete for the purpose of holding a public hearing at our next meeting in February. So the board members have had a brief chance to look over the papers that you've submitted. If we have any questions, we'll ask you at this meeting. You can obviously respond. And then we'll meet again in February for a public hearing where the public will be notified of this application, and then they'll have the opportunity to come in and speak about the application. So noting all that, I turn it over to you if you can kind of give us an overview of what you intend to do and why you're seeking the area variance.
Good evening, and thank you all. So, my name is Emerson Sambo, and I'd like to talk to you about on Green Street. And I intend to put up a exactly 790 square foot home, so it's residential property home that I intend to put up there. And the reason I seek variance is because it does not meet the 9,000 square foot. It's a 6,000 square foot lot. But I intend to actually put up a structure that is going to meet the setbacks and requirements. So I deliver it does meet the requirements. It needs to be, two to the three. So the setbacks are it's well within setbacks and some to be able to perform in that sense. Yes, I think that's pretty much it. And it's going to be it's a residential. Like any business, of course. And I believe having it around the area as well is that the other lots that are of similar size, but just slightly bigger homes on. But this tend to make smaller, and, so that we can avoid setbacks that are required.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. You can sit down if you feel comfortable, or you can stay seated, whatever you wish. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? I just have a clerical note to make. On the first page of the application, under the zoning district, we'll note that it's an R9 zoning district. It's filled in as a single residential, but we'll note that it's R9. And then in your packet, you have drawn out two plots. And I believe correctly, so on this page, you have indicated what is required. And then on this page, you have indicated how you're going to meet the setbacks. Any other questions for Mr. Masambo at this time?
Not for him, but just for clarification, so the 790 square feet is within, there is a minimum size for an R9. Right?
A minimum size structure?
Structure,
Single-family, 720 square feet.
but is there anything, I mean, I'm just wondering if, is there anything, because this is a non-conforming lot, because it doesn't meet the 9,000 square feet. Is there something different that we should be looking
We, the smallest zoning district we have is R9.
at? Right.
And I have mentioned this before, that you're trying to fit 9,000 square feet, where a lot of these lots in this area are half that size. But we have no other smaller zoning district than what we have. These districts have been designated as R9, and they are based on 9,000 square feet.
But the districts, like the R9 districts, these were established before the zoning came in place, is that not?
That's a good question. I came in very close to the adoption of the 2017 new code, zoning code. So I am not aware of what was before that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there were any other, where we had a non-conforming lot that was a vacant lot and that it was approved to build on it. But you're not aware of that.
I am not aware of that. No.
Okay, so the 790 square feet is within the limits for the 9,000 square feet, but that's all that we need to look at. We don't need to consider anything else due to the fact that this is a,
The minimum floor area for an R9 is 720 square feet for a single story. So that's minimum.
all right, I don't have any other questions.
I think what I see with this is that when you start getting into your percentages of lot occupancy, and you're basing these sizes on 9,000 square feet, which that is not what you have.
Right.
So do you cut those numbers down by 50% if you get a 4,500 square foot lot?
Well, that's what I'm just wondering, if it's a vacant lot and it's never been developed, of course, if you have a house on the same size lot that is much larger, there's nothing you can do about that. But seeing that this is a new structure, this lot has never been built on, is there something else that we should be taking into consideration?
R9 is what we get.
Right, so if I can weigh in on that, you are charged with applying the current zoning law. The property is located in R9, so those area and bulk table requirements are applicable. Area variance, you will need to determine under the area variance standards whether variance to construct a proposed structure of this size on that lot size is approvable. So you go through your standards, but certainly the other area and bulk requirements, you have to apply the current code for the parcel located in that particular zoning district. So the R9 standards do apply. The area variance request will speak to the fact that the lot size itself is substandard. So you'll take that into account,
Okay,
but you are looking at the current code requirements.
okay.
So I guess not, if that's the question, the 790 square feet, you said it's for one floor?
Single story, the minimum is 720 square feet in an R9. You cannot build anything smaller than 720 square foot on an R9.
And his first floor square footage is 554, so does it consider to qualify, or is it, his first floor square footage is only 554, second floor is 236? So does that qualify? Or is the garage taken into consideration?
Garage
Or is
is
that even part of it?
part of the footprint, yeah.
I mean, it's 300 square feet alone just for the garage.
So that would bring you at 820. Right? Because there's no differentiation of living space in this square foot.
It's total square foot, right? So then the garage would be included, and it would be over the 790. Okay. On the first floor.
The second floor garage isn't tough.
So the house is actually bigger than 790 square feet. It has a second floor in it, right?
That's what,
That's where the 1,000 comes in, 1,000 and something.
well, it's 554 on the first floor and 236 on the second floor, total is 790.
That's just living space, but that doesn't include the garage. Oh, good, okay.
So the application appears complete for the purpose of holding the public hearing, which will be next month. The zoning board meets once a month, generally on the third Monday of each month. In February, though, sometimes we need to make changes. In February is one of those cases, because on the third Monday in February, February 19th is a holiday. So we will meet again on February 26th at 6 p.m. And there'll be a public hearing. And like that, the people in the area will be notified of the application, and then they'll have the opportunity to come in and speak. Do you have any questions, Russ?
Is it possible between now and then, I'm not sure whether you are going to review it again between now and the 26th, is it possible for you to actually see the same council from the board itself? The application
Right, in, to pursue what purpose?
for the variances.
Right, so when you come before the board, they'll be at these meetings. If any other question comes up in the meantime, you can direct that to the building department and they can help you out.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night. See you in February.
What's the date in February?
26th.
Who's at President's Day, right?
Yes, on the 19th.
It happens every January and every February. I wasn't picking you up real well on your side. I don't know whether she was soft-spoken.
6 o'clock.
Okay, next we have 2978 New York State 2 LLC. Hi, welcome. I ask if you could just kind of give an overview of your project and the variance that you're seeking and the reason why you're seeking it. We'll go from there.
Sure, thanks. Kevin Nussman here, Gold Storage.
Sorry, could you state your last name again?
Wake up, WICKHAM as in Michael.
You're welcome.
So we acquired this property in 2021. I think for like context of this discussion, I think backwards prior to our ownership. So prior to 2008, it was operated as was display for Shed Man, I believe was the business. And then in October of 2008, the owner went to the planning board and got approval to install 2 self-storage buildings, which were then put up. In 2009, he went back to the planning board seeking approval for a second and third phase expansion on the property, additional self-storage. And this is kind of where the history is a little bit light. Somewhere between going for that approval, he didn't complete the process permit. So it was completed, and then between 2011 and 20, as far as we can tell, 18, he basically started replacing sheds in the property with the storage buildings under that. Fast forward to us buying the property in 2021, we weren't aware of this. And then I think this past fall, someone on our team informally reached out to, I believe the zoning board, but I'm not positive on that.
Building department.
Okay, yeah, about informally about getting a setback variance to put some additional units up. And that's when, at least to my knowledge, that's when the realization was made that, hey, some of these buildings that are here were never properly permitted. So that brings us to today, looking to rectify, I'm not looking to change the property as it is, looking to rectify and actually properly get the use variance to approve the storage because zoning was changed to hamlet in 2017. So storage is not a permitted use in a hamlet, it was prior to that. So looking to get the use variance and then properly permit these structures that the previous owner put up.
So the storage units were allowed in that zone prior to the change in the zoning law?
Correct.
I was not sure.
Predates me as well.
I think all we can say on that is certainly the record shows that the planning board did review and approve a site plan for that use. I don't know that that answers the same question as whether it was allowable under the prior zoning ordinance, but the record does reflect the planning board did review and approve
To use it to put in the storage.
the site plan for the original two.
Right, the original two, yeah, the original two were properly
And then
approved.
there was an application filed to amend that approval to add additional storage units, and that's the process that wasn't completed.
Yep, that's where it went awry.
So if this use variance is approved, the zoning setbacks will still be for Hamlet, correct?
Well, I'll answer that in just a moment, but
The reason I ask is just the satellite view looks about side setbacks. You should be good where you are with the Hamlet, 10 feet.
So the property, like we said in the earlier application, the property is in the Hamlet district, so the area and bulk standards for that district apply to that location
Okay.
under the
Good.
current law. Yep.
Good.
So the question would be, and I've not reviewed the application, is the use variance seeking a variance for the structures that are currently on the site?
Correct.
So that the use variance would, it neither anticipates nor would include any additional storage units on the site.
Correct, looking to just properly permit what's already there.
What's already there.
Yeah.
So the use variance would be limited then to the self-storage structures that are currently on the site. And if approved, the use variance would not extend to allow any additional self-storage units on the site. That'd be subject to further review
Right.
if that was proposed.
I think that's the best proposal here, just trying to get compliant with what's there.
What's legal is orange.
Right.
You can't see it.
Are you struck for this property?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, they park on. That's ARC.
Is there a variance for that or?
Not that I'm aware of.
So the zoning board often sees applications for area variances. Use variances more infrequent. There's a different standard that the zoning board needs to use when considering a use variance. Would you want to, Andy, kind of go over the differences and what the board needs to consider for the use variance?
Sure. So you are familiar, because you deal with them mostly, the elements that you review, standards for consideration and action on area variance. So the use variance in concept is, well, I'll take a quick step back. Okay. You can fill in if you think we're missing anything, which is in concept, an area variance seeks approval for a use that is consistent with what's allowed in that zoning district from a use perspective. It just does not meet area or bulk requirements. setbacks are the usual one, but setbacks, height restrictions, lot coverage, things like that. But the use that's occurring on the property is an allowed use under the zoning law. That's an area variance. A use variance is requesting relief from the code because the use on the site is not allowed in that zoning district under the applicable zoning law. You're seeking relief from that use restriction, saying, I understand your zoning law does not allow that use on this property within that zoning district, but I'd like to either initiate or continue that use. So the relief is from the restriction under the zoning law for the use. The different legal standards bring your attention to the application form itself. It reviews those. The big one with the use variance is economic proof. You've done a limited number of use variance, but this is referred to as dollars and cents proof. And the standard here is the property owner cannot realize a reasonable rate of economic return for this property for any of the allowable uses in the zoning district. The concept for that is if the town, the municipality, has identified what uses it thinks is appropriate for the site, given the location surrounding uses, it's made that legislative determination. If a property owner can still get a reasonable rate of economic return from that use, then that's what should be pursued. And that's a significant factor on considering the use variance. So there's usually dollars and cents or economic proof submitted. I can't get a reasonable rate of economic return for any of the uses allowed for that district under the zoning law. Again, then there's factors dealing with the hardship that's somewhat unique to the property or the proposed use, so there's a uniqueness element. Doesn't generally apply to the zone across the board. I've got a unique piece of property. And that can be whether it's a physical uniqueness or there's something associated with the use of the property that makes it unique, and the applicant can submit any proof on that. That the variance if granted, because it's a use that's not allowed in the code, will not substantially alter the essential character of the surrounding area. If you think about it, you've got uses where the legislature, the town board has determined these are allowable uses. We think they're compatible. We'll put them in the same zoning district. They can exist side by side. They're asking for relief from that, for a use that's not allowed under the zoning law. That factor says that won't substantially alter the essential nature of the surrounding property, character of the neighborhood. And lastly, that the alleged hardship is not self-created, meaning you came to it, you knew these were the restrictions, now you want to do something different with the property, that's self-created. I think the applicant has addressed those, given the kind of the record, the history of this, but that's clearly up to the board. That's the nature of the use variance as opposed to an area variance of the standards that you should be considering.
I think the only piece of color to add there would be, the reason we attached the photos of the overhead is, again, to your question, was storage of permitted. You're correct. I don't know the exact answer whether it was or wasn't prior, but in the past it was approved. And I believe the images show that the bulk of the storage, even though it was not legally permitted, was added prior to the 2017 rezone where storage clearly is not permitted use. So for whatever that's worth, I mean, the previous owner clearly should have gone through the process, but I believe the bulk of the storage was actually added to plan under the prior zoning where what had been permitted was in the property.
And I will add there on that point, again, just for your consideration, when you're thinking about this over the course of the next month and before we get to the public hearing, is a property owner obtains legal rights or vested rights to continue that use when a use or structures are built after having obtained all necessary legal permits and approvals. Clearly, there was a site plan that did approve 2 of the self-storage structures, quite frankly, the bulk of the self-storage structures that are on the site.
Yep.
There was an application made to amend that approval to add whether it be the second or third phase, but to add additional storage units, which was not completed. And after that attempted process in '09, there were additional structures added, to my knowledge, without notification to the town building department. So, it, as a matter of law, would not be recorded. Legal status, but factually, that's what occurred, and you should take that into account in applying those.
That's what they are, just really was. Gotta get back in for more than 5 minutes.
So in the past, the zoning board has required of the applicant in nature like this to itemize out all the uses allowed for that parcel. And then with the dollar and cents, determine whether or not it's feasible and economically viable to use them on this site. Is that something that the board would like to see? Because I'm asking that so we can give that question and that assignment to the applicant now, instead of waiting down the line, or the information that you have in front of you is sufficient to meet the question about a reasonable economic return. You understand my question?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And kind of to that point, if we were to break down the economics of each other use allowed in this Hamlet district, would we consider the dismantling? No. I was gonna say, finish, like, the dismantling of what's already current.
I would suggest, based on this record, if a use variance were not granted, it actually, you need to take a look at the record and determine the approved site plan for the site did allow construction of 2 of the larger self-storage units, and Chuck can step you through that. Those are currently legal on the site, right? Because they were constructed in compliance with an approved site plan. There were clearly other structures on this site which were not. The request is allow us to keep all of those units there and grant a use variance to, in essence, clean up the record and to provide legal status to those additional storage units that were put in without permits or approvals. But if the site were to be put into a different use that's allowable in the hamlet, the fact record shows those units would have to go. So I think it'd be appropriate to consider the economic impact of having to dismantle, remove those structures from the site, and prep the site for a different use. I think that'd be appropriate.
Is there any other information that the board would like to require from the applicant? Would you feel like the application packet is complete for the purpose of holding a public hearing?
The only question I had is the structures in question that we're talking about. I was just talking with Chuck about them. So they're compartmentalized small containers.
Yeah, I think we call it like modular storage units, if you will, so they can, when they and they arrive and they put together. So they look, if you drive the property, most people look at it and say, well, it's a building, it's already up, but technically they are, could be
Are they
separate.
on a fixed concrete pad, or are they just on the ground?
No, I don't think ground, I mean, I think gravel was probably quite level, but there was no contact for it. And then that's probably how we kind of put it on, pop one up here, pop one up there, replace a shed, and that's my hypothesis on what probably happened.
No, okay. So Mr. Grimm, we'll put you on the agenda for February 26th for 6:15.
Okay.
And it'll be for a public hearing.
And so it wasn't clear to me, was there additional requirements for me to bring to that?
No, there was not.
Financial, just the financial information. Do we do that?
Yeah, so you would like to see that broken down, what's
I think
allowable?
so, I think that's what Andy was saying, I think that would be a reasonable request.
Right, that's within your discretion on the application. Clearly, one of the standards is failure to realize a reasonable economic return for the uses allowable in the district. So if you want to see that broken down, you may see a lot of the same economic proof, and that's okay, on each one of the proposed uses, but as long as you have that information in front of you.
It would probably be good to have for that.
Is there an example of something, just an example so I can be somewhat prepared for how to prepare that?
Sure, so with coordination with the building department, you can get the list of what is allowable in Hamlet, and, right, and you can kind of go out from there.
Listed in the zoning law, right? Is that a public record, the zoning law? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm probably gonna get a phone call to clarify what's exactly expected.
Well, you probably just include, like, if you had to remove those.
Sure.
What the cost would be for you to remove those.
Sure.
And then look at each one of the uses that's allowed and whether or not you could get any kind of financial gain out of, a reasonable financial gain out of having that use on site.
Would it make sense to have them contact the realtor and have the realtor say, no, there's no way you can sell a house here or something like that?
Well, I would suggest that that'll be up to the applicant. One of the ways the economic proof is submitted many times is through a realtor or appraiser, and that's competent economic proof. You've also seen proof from whether it be an engineer or a builder on what it would cost to actually construct an allowable structure on the property. All that is competent proof in front of you, so it'll be up to the applicant and how they want to present that, but your appraiser,
That's, I
realtor.
was just suggesting
do
for
that,
his knowledge.
Correct, it would be an option for any applicant to address the economic proof.
And so basically, I'm trying to show that, like, obviously there's would be costs incurred, and then development costs, and then I'm showing that we wouldn't be better off by tearing the storage and doing something else.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any septic on that site?
No. I don't believe there's something.
Well, there's going to be a lot of those things in the hamlet you're going to need a septic for.
So that would be another cost.
That would be another
Understood.
cost.
Understood. Got it. Thank you. I was trying to figure out where you're driving. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right, and I'm sure you have this information. One of the things that the building department is aware about that site is the fairly high water table and depth to groundwater.
Mhm.
So that, I know there's been issues regarding
Impacting the buildability.
and location within a floodplain.
Right.
So all those issues will be
Understood.
relevant.
Appreciate this.
Now, based on that, given the time
Guess that's it.
tonight, the 26th, we still want to schedule
I can't read it.
Do you think that's a reasonable amount of time?
It says
Yeah,
proposed,
that's
but where those guys
And
are.
we'll need to have that in by a certain date so the public will have access to review.
What's the date request
Well,
there?
the notice has to be at least 10 days before the public hearing.
Okay,
That would be February 16th then.
okay. So if I have it in like the 10th, then it should be a change. Okay.
Do you have any other questions for us, Mr.
I don't think so.
Okay, and if you do, if anything comes up between now and then, you can just direct it to the building department.
Appreciate it.
Any other notes of new business you'd like to discuss tonight? Entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ron. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you very much. See you in February.
This is just a satellite view of that. You can see, ours was what was approved, brown.
It seems like it's been there.
Okay. Good to see you back.
So,
Makes things easier.
this is the same situation. I lived in the daycare.
Well, that's what you're talking about, is it?
And we know.
If you need it, they'll do it.
But that's why I said,
Oh.
we asked them for that information. We asked this question. Probably better off.
I think
Well, good. On that, I guess, on that, what it is. Any issue with the zoning board members accessing the
I'm
site?
sure you got picture.
It is open to the public
Yeah, just
after all,
their
it's a business, so.
I still,
Yeah,
I'd
see it, like,
Yeah, you can
like at least,
on
you
the
know,
page
take a little.
There, in the back one.
Okay.
That's what those vehicles are, in the back. You can see it coming on his back.
Chuck, are we signed off?
There we go. And stream and